It's another Wednesday, which means another episode of your favorite podcast. I'm Ryan Deemer, your host of the Skid Steer Nation podcast, and today we are doing things just a little bit differently. We're bringing back two of our previous guests, Mr. Jeremy Holbrooks and Mr. Lee Gums, and we've invited a fourth member to join us today, Justin Rogers. Justin has made a wonderful career in real estate, and he's transitioning into a program called Kingdom Men, where he's just making men better men. So the purpose of today's interview today, though, and I'm not even going to call it an interview, we're going to call this a roundtable today. So Jeremy and I and Lee and I in our individual episodes, we really connected and hit it off, and we went really deep on like the personal level stuff of what it takes to not only be a good man, but be a good business owner. And we've been texting offline for a while and decided, what if we did a group forum roundtable where we all just come in and we're not going to talk about Google business profiles. We're not going to talk about SEO. We're not going to talk about lead forms. Let's just talk about business owners as men and like the habits and the traits and the things that we struggle with and we're doing good with, and just see where this episode goes. So I've been extremely excited to get to this recording, and I hope you guys enjoy listening. As always, it's brought to you by Skid Steer Nation, your home for American-made skid steer attachments and groundbreaking growth, where we help you transform your excavation business. So Justin, Jeremy, Lee, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here as well.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's great to be on here. I love talking about all this stuff with entrepreneurs and other men.
Yeah, it was always fun because like Jeremy and I think we did ours before Lee and I did his, and we were talking business, how we got started, and then we got into journaling, I believe. And then we talked about a few things that he's working on with you and your program. And we went down the rabbit hole. And then Lee, I think it started with Hard 75, right? And after that, we didn't talk any more business.
Yeah, it kind of took off from there on the personal development side of things. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah. And they just were amazing interviews for me. So I'm excited to have you guys here today. I'm not going to lie. I did not want to have this thing scripted, so I do not have a lot of notes in front of me to be like, hey, what do you guys feel about this? I really want it to be organic. So I think one of the things as business owners we can start with, and it'll jump to mindset and all that, is Jeremy's taken the deep plunge, removing the fear, and he's really digging deep into creating content for himself and his business and making yourself the face of your business. And you went from like a few views to now hundreds of views. And I bet some of those videos are getting thousands of views. What have you seen by tackling that fear and starting to be consistent with making content?
Once you get over that fear part, it's fun. You enjoy it. And people love to be a part of your journey, see where you started. It's good for you to look back as well. It gets you in rooms that you wouldn't be able to get into. Helps you build relationships. People like to, run an equipment all day long, and they just, sometimes you can just upload a video, not say a word, and you get thousands of views just because people love dirt, watch the machinery. But a lot of people don't post the good and bad. So I've learned posting the good, but also posting the bad and being different. So it's really cool to see your audience grow. So.
That's awesome. And Justin, you're the one that kind of pushed him in this direction, right?
Yeah, 100%. So one of the things that I coach on is a lot of it has to do with personal development, but a lot of it has to do with business development too. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, they end up fat, broke, miserable, and busy, right? People and they're just busy and they're not generating revenue, and they're not doing tasks that lead to that. But as far as creating content, it does a lot of things. Even for myself, what I found is it's not just personal brand recognition and that kind of stuff, but it makes you much more comfortable, like with your public speaking skills. When you get in rooms and you're talking with contractors or estimates, or you're, going to offices and having to have conversations with people about things, it takes so much of the fear and the unknown out of it, and you learn to just speak and just to have a conversation. And so I had found it's just a great way to overcome the fear of public speaking and that kind of stuff by just getting out there. But creating content is, like we were saying earlier before the conversation, it's like digital real estate. And it's cheap to create. I mean, you can do it. Jeremy started from his phone, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I encourage people to create content. I started creating content. It was in May, almost 3 years ago, and there was a Gary Vee was pushing it. Bradley was pushing 3 reels a day, all the platforms, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. So I was like, okay, I hear these guys, they're smarter than me. I'm going to go do it. And it generated a lot of leads for my business, my real estate business. Excuse me. And people started to know who I was. There was a lot of personal brand recognition related to that. And it put money in my pocket, and it was free. So yeah, everybody that I coach, I tell them that.
And I can relate it to they always say the rich get richer, right? Like the movie stars get the most opportunities. It's because they want that name attached to it. It's not so much as money. They want the name attached to it or to be working with them. So in our industry, if you're the guy that you're seeing on Facebook every single day and YouTube, that's the guy you want doing your work on your property. So you can tell your friends about it.
Yeah. And it looks cool too. People love to watch their own story, or they love to watch like a hero's journey, right? So personal life, personal development, all that kind of stuff. But if you're doing a job for a client and it's a cool job, they're going to want to watch the YouTube video. Hey, we started out with this lot covered in trees, and now we're building a $2 million house. They're watching and they're paying attention. So it's just free advertising, and then they're sending it to their friends. Content's a powerful tool.
Well, and the reason I brought that whole up was it's there's so many of us out there that you turn that phone on, hit record, and you're staring at it, and you're like, nope, not doing it. It's a legitimate hurdle you got to mentally jump over to get started on that before it becomes just a normal step in your day. Jeremy, how was it for you? How awkward was it, and how does it feel today now that you've been doing it for a little while?
I tell you what, when I made the call to Justin, I was in a place where I knew I needed help, and he was like, "Well, I'm not going to coach you unless you make a Facebook page or a Facebook post and tell people why you need help."
I'm going to do a Facebook Live.
Yeah, and I didn't do it. I didn't do it at the time. He's like, "Well, sorry, man, you missed your opportunity." So I was like, "Man, no way." So I went on there, and if you go back and watch that to now, it's totally different. You're nervous. You don't want to be vulnerable. You have that syndrome of what's people going to think about me, and it's fearful. Yes, it is. But once you start enjoying it and really dive deep and be vulnerable, it becomes super easy. It becomes like nothing. It's okay. I'm uploading a video really quick. Boom, done. So.
Yeah, I think it's Brene Brown that says you cannot be courageous without walking through vulnerability. Vulnerability is the pathway to being courageous. Lee, look at your days in the military, right? You had to been just a scared puppy at the first beginning of boot camp and vulnerable and up to everybody else. And then you become a courageous Marine. I mean, everything you look at in your life, when people look back and go, wow, he was so courageous, it's because you were putting yourself in vulnerable situations.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate on that. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, you go into boot camp, you're scared shitless. I mean, you don't know what you're doing, and it's pretty crazy that making videos on your phone can scare a grown man to death. I mean, it scares me. I mean, I've done it a couple times for my business as well. And it's you look at the video and you're like, oh, I'm an idiot. Nope, delete that. You're talking too fast, and all it is a video of yourself. But it is a huge hurdle to overcome. But like they were saying before, it's such a big tool to build personal trust with potential customers that you almost have to do it nowadays.
It's very true. I want to stay on that whole vulnerability track because I think, me being a coach, Justin, you being a coach, Jeremy, you being a client of a coach, him making you make that video is one thing, but you had to go through an internal struggle and feel enough pain that you actually wanted to hire somebody or find somebody to help you. How would you correlate that pain to the fear you had when you first started your business?
Well, first off, I started my business. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I didn't feel the way I felt when I made that call. As the years went by and I started to figure out, I wasn't making money. I wasn't showing up for my family. Was being the man God made me to be. And then the fear, I didn't really have fear to reach out to Justin. I just didn't know what reaching out to him was going to do. I was really nervous when I met him. Just his presence and the way he lived his life. I watched him off Facebook, his content. And after I met him and initially, did the live video and we started coaching, it was more nervous than starting my business than, signing up with him, because I knew I had to be, for some, it gives you that feeling, more accountability. And he wasn't just, slapping my hand, I was just doing everything wrong. So not showing up for my family, not, all over. And it's taken us, over a year to get comfortable in my emotions mentally. And so I'm not really fearful anymore. But, back to the starting the business, it was totally different. That's all I can say to that one. Total different. If I could go back to do it the way I was doing it now, oh man, it'd be totally different. But I have arrived, and I'm at where God. I'm right where I need to be. So
I say that all the time, man. I think Lee, you and I talked about it too, right? God always says, "Hey, you're exactly where you need to be, going through exactly what you need to go through."
Oh yeah, we talked about that on our podcast.
Yeah.
About supposed to be and learn the lessons that God is intending us to learn in that moment.
Yeah. How about, I think all three of us have pretty strong faith, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Justin, how much do you feel faith plays into being successful for you?
So faith plays a huge piece in that. I'm going to touch on the vulnerability piece real quick though, just because I had to get to a place where I was broken enough. I have hired mentors and still do. And so I think you get to a point where you said you've got to have enough pain to go, hey, I got a problem. But we live in a culture, especially as men, where we have this ego and this pride, especially as entrepreneurs, and we're trying to do all these things and, look like a badass entrepreneur when really we're struggling inside or we're struggling financially. And one of the things I love to encourage people in is raise your hand, raise the flag. And somebody beeping there. Raise your hand, raise the flag. Because here's the thing. We connect through our brokenness, right? That's where we really make a difference. When we're like, hey man, I'm jacked up inside. I'm having a day, or hey man, I'm putting in all these hours and I'm not making any money, or my wife hates me, or my kid doesn't even know me. And so I think we should kind of have a cultural shift where we start to embrace each other as men and be like, hey bro, I got your back. Let me reach down with a hand and pull you up. We should be out there fighting this fight together in business and personal stuff. So there's that, because I went through addiction and some things and like some dark places, and I had to get real vulnerable in order to grow through those things in my life and come out on the other side and continue freaking, plowing the garden. But faith plays a huge part for me, and that was part of my brokenness, right? So I went through a phase of my life where I was like at the end of the road. I was making good money, but personally, I was miserable. I was busy making money, and I was empty. And so for me, I literally got to the point where I was like, God, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to continue my life here on this earth. And I kind of had a reflection moment one day where I was like, why am I working so hard to get to a place I'm so miserable? That doesn't even make any sense. Why am I busting my butt trying to do all these things? And here I am miserable in my marriage and mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And so I kind of went through a phase where I was extremely vulnerable, and I had to start to step into my faith in a massive way because I didn't have anything else to step into. And so I embraced God in a pretty transformational process where I was like, I'm going to get in the Word every day, and that's where I'm going to start. I knew that was a good thing. And I grew up in church and went to church on Sundays, checked the box, but I didn't engage in my faith. I wasn't in the Word. I wasn't in the tool that God gives us as a user manual on this planet while we're here. I wasn't paying any attention. I'm sitting here like, God saved me. And meanwhile, I'm not doing my part to even read the book. So that plays a huge foundational part, in who I am as a man today and the way that I coach people and the way that I run my businesses. Because the Bible really, at the core of it, it calls us to do good things where we are. When you guys were talking earlier too about being powerfully present, right? Be where your feet are. And you take those concepts and it allows us to be much more effective, right? So faith plays a huge part for me in everything that I do. And I talk about it a lot on the internet and everywhere, just because it's been so impactful for me.
Yeah. And Lee, you were the same way, weren't you? Like you got down before you got back up, if I remember right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was, I went to a whole bunch of jobs. I was drinking all the time. And I just wasn't being this is before me and my wife got married. I wasn't the man that she needed me to be, really. I wasn't as present as I could be. And so, yeah, I mean, I did 75 hard and I lost 75 pounds. I quit drinking. I've been sober for almost 2 years. And like you, I read the Bible every morning. It's part of my, don't matter what time I wake up, I'm always getting in the Word first thing in the morning. It sets my day off right. And I pray throughout the day just to myself, just to keep me on track, keep my thoughts on track. So I do think that faith is a huge deal. But yeah, I do believe that God puts us in situations to where we have to make the decision to change or grow or whatever we need to do. And if we don't do it, we're just going to continue to fail and go down the path. So,
yeah. So both of you guys incorporated that into your mornings. Like you hear all the gurus out there, like you got to have a morning routine, the first 2 hours or first 20 minutes. And then you see the memes out there, like, here's my morning routine. It's like coffee, toilet, cigarette, and everyone kind of, there's like that whole, all right, you're ramming it down my throat too far. But I do believe that having a consistent morning to a certain degree does set you up for a successful day. So, but I just kind of want to walk through like all of you guys' thoughts and ideas and we don't need to get down to the minute of what you do, but I'm curious to see like how all of you attack your morning once you wake up for the day.
Yeah. I'll go first. So I agree. Like some people think they got to have a 4-hour morning routine. They're like, man, I'm not making any money. I'm like, well, you walked your dog for an hour and then you went hiking and like, that's not a morning routine, that's avoiding work. But I kind of about that same time when I started that process, I was like, I need to implement some things in my life that create rhythm, that add value to my life that aren't related to work. And so one of that was faith-based. I have a simple morning routine I do. It usually takes me about 30 minutes. I get up and I drink water first thing. I have my quiet time. I do meditation and breath work. I write my Bible thought notes down. I send them out and then I'm off. So, I do. And usually if I'm not going to hit the gym that day, I'll knock out like 50 or 60 push-ups or something. I want to get physical, but I try to start my day with something mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. So to kind of lighten me up and head me off in the right direction.
I love that. How you you really broke it down to 4 words, mental, physical, emotional,
and spiritual. Yeah.
Spiritual. I was like, I know I'm missing one there somewhere. That's awesome, man. Jeremy, what about you? How do you approach your mornings?
Well, on a normal morning, the last couple of weeks it's been a little off for me, but normal morning, I wake up at 5. I'll eat my breakfast real quick, head to the gym, and then I will listen to my Bible app on my truck on the way to the job site, and I hit the ground running.
So you're just like, just get up, get physical, get moving, and fit some other things in transition. So you've made it fit your lifestyle.
Right. And then I made a point where before I started all this, I'd rather be working and spending time with my family, being present with them. So no matter what, I'm packing up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. I'm heading home. It's family time at 6:30. So I've made that a point in my life where family time is very important. Justin's really every client that he teaches is bang that into their head is being a husband and father is the most important thing. And I made that to a daily routine. Another thing that I do at lunchtime is I make 5 to 10 cold calls every day. at lunchtime on my lunch break, and then back to work and home at 5, or leave at 5.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now we're going to hear from Lee, and I'm sure his is going to blow all of us out of the water as far as how do you squeeze that all in the morning?
Well, I won't tell you what time I get up, but it's pretty early. And I get up and I'm cooking breakfast. I got farm animals to take care of, hit the gym, and then I'm on the job site by 7, 6:45, 7 o'clock. But I cook breakfast. I read my Bible. I have a devotion. I usually try to make some kind of social media post on the business side or the personal brand side. And that's what I like to do. And I do it every day, no matter what. And it just sets me right. The animal's taken care of, the house is taken care of, I'm taken care of. And I know Alex Ramosi doesn't believe in them, but for me, I like having a routine every morning to set me right for the day.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, for me on a personal level, the thought of a morning routine, like getting a bunch of things done for myself, is so appealing. So I'll go through phases where I'll get up, I'll take the dog on a quick 20-minute walk so she can do her morning business. And then, you try to either read or meditate, and then you want to get some workout in, and then cook a quick breakfast, and then you try to journal. Next thing you know, it's like 2.5 hours. And then I'm way out of rhythm for work, or I'll wake up and go straight into work, and I get a lot of shit done, but then I never take care of myself throughout the rest of the day. So I have a hard time balancing what a good morning routine is. And then I need to start probably incorporating some afternoon routine to offset it a little bit.
I think that's the thing really is when I talk with people, it doesn't necessarily have to be done in the morning, but so what I encourage guys to adopt, and I've done myself, is a simple checklist, and you put it on your phone and you identify things that add value to your life, and you just check them off every day, and you could post them in the group chat, you could post them to your story, and I call it winning the day. Because it is easy. It definitely can be, when you work for yourself, you're like, the time you, like I said, walk the dog and those kind of things, it's been 2 hours and you're like, I should probably do some work stuff. Yeah.
Now, granted, it's 7:30 by the time you're done with all that. So most people still haven't even made it in the car for the commute.
Right.
But to you, you're like, well, what have I done so far? Like, I'm behind schedule.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting. And Jeremy knows this, like, I can tell when he's off. You know what I mean? Like after a few weeks, I'm like, hey, are you paying attention to the small things in your life? Because I can tell that the fruit is starting to look a little different,
Yeah. What do you consider the small things?
Stuff like that. Mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and financial. So I coach in 5 boxes, and doing the small things that it takes to add value to your life in those 5 areas, whatever those may be for each individual. One of the things that I do different, it's not my program on other people. And that's kind of one of the reasons I got into the coaching space, is because a lot of people want you to implement their ideas. And I really just want people to implement some systems to help them have their own ideas. Meaning, not everybody wants to be jacked. Not everybody wants a 6-pack. Not everybody wants to be able to jog. Not everybody's thinking about meditation. And so those small things are unique to each individual and the goals that they want to set, and it's the things that help track us towards those things on a daily basis. It's like step by step, it's how you build a house, one brick at a time.
Yeah, it's so true. And a lot of that, in my opinion, depends on the age. Like I went through a transition period where working out now takes on a whole new meaning. Now I went from working out because I want to lift weights and look great to I want to be healthy. And trying to bench press 250 pounds, it's not healthy for my shoulders. It's not healthy for, like I don't recover the way I used to or rebound from injuries. So like my approach and all that. So I've started incorporating yoga and things for flexibility. And my priorities have 100% shifted as I've gotten older.
Well, I think they probably got a lot of clarity on that too, because I went through a phase where I wanted to do bodybuilding and powerlifting and all that kind of stuff. And I had part of my identity in that, not identity in my faith or my father. And so that kind of held a thing in my life. But I also, same thing, as I started getting older, I'm like, man, I need to be able to maybe like jog or be a little more healthy rather than trying to be big and so strong. And like, I see people getting injured and I'm like, I don't want to be that way.
I'll tell you what, go watch the Ronnie Coleman documentary. Remember?
I know. Yeah, I've seen it.
That dude came and put his pants on in the morning or walked because of how bad his hips and legs and everything are because of all the abuse his body took lifting all those weights.
Yeah, people think it looks cool, and it does. And that's a great guy. The discipline that it took to go through that process, but that's not what I want when I'm older.
Yeah, no, me neither. Lee, what have you figured out? Because like I know you're very active in your physical health. What systems work for you now that you are really glad you incorporated?
I really got serious about the nutrition side of things. So like counting macros and obviously getting rid of alcohol was huge. But really just figuring out what diet works best for me to not only achieve the muscular goals that I have, but also keeping like my inflammation down and my energy up and my joints, feeling good and, staying around. And if I want to maybe bulk up a little bit, I do it in a leaner fashion versus how I bulked up before, which was just eat as much as you can as, every 2 hours. And
yeah, well, you've got a unique ability, if I remember correctly, and that's where you can eat the same damn thing 7 times a day.
Yeah, I can eat the same thing every day. Don't matter to me. Don't matter. I could have said I've been cooking the same breakfast for a year. I don't care. Like I'm very routine based.
Yeah.
Now we cook different dinners, but I can't eat the same thing every day.
Yeah. I feel like no matter what aspect, if you look at this from a health point of view, I heard a guy, this dude on TikTok goes around asking really jacked people, what do they do to look like that? And this guy had the best answer I ever heard. And it's something I think you can actually implement in all areas of your life. He looked at him and says, it's not what I do, it's what I don't do.
Yeah.
Like I don't drink alcohol. I don't eat processed foods. Like you're never going to outwork a shitty diet for that side of it. So you take that same concept and implement it into your other part of your life, right? Oh, I don't ignore my wife when we're sitting on the couch watching TV. I don't have my phone in my hand. I don't, you can make the list go on and on of all the things that you look at and say, oh, I don't criticize her because there's dishes in the sink when I get home. So to me, it's like that whole, how can you take that? It's not what I do, it's what I don't do, and apply it in other areas of your business or your life.
I think that's a great. So I love the word simple, and I think that's a great way to look at it. Like if you have a simple business plan, if you have a simple diet plan or whatever, and I would really call it more of a lifestyle, kind of like Lee was saying. It's not really about having a diet for this number of days or a diet for that number of days. It's really about identifying what you want life to look like and then just implementing it and executing it on just a committed basis over a long period of time. Just because I love the word simple, I'm like, tell me to do these 3 things and then I'll just do those 3 things and that's it. That's all I need to know.
And you really don't even have to commit, like for the rest. Like for me, I'm going to be this way for the rest of my life. But a lot of people have commitment issues. You tell them you got to eat this way forever, and it freaks them out. But you can just simply say you're going to eat right today, and then just keep saying that every day, and it's a little bit easier to swallow for people versus, oh, well, you have to do this for a year.
You can never have French fries again. That's what they do.
Yeah. Just do it for one, just like your business. You just show up every day and you're going to be more successful down the road than 90% of the guys. They're doing it.
Yeah. Aubrey Marcus wrote a book called Own the Day. And he basically the same concept, Lee, that you're talking about, but he just wrote a 300-page book about it. But build one perfect day and then just repeat it. Like he's not talking about changes you need to make forever. It was just build one day. Like, what is the ideal perfect day? And he's like down to the minute, get granular. And then attack it and just try to have one perfect day. Because if you can have one perfect day, you can build on that to start building a style of days that fits your life.
That's good.
So in my lap, just one more, baby.
That's it. One more.
Yeah. Just one more. What do you guys do when you start to lose purpose? I think as business owners, you start to get into that gray area and you start wondering what you're doing, why you're doing it, and all of that. Like, what do you guys do to mentally get checked back in when you're having that off period?
You got to find that clarity piece. I worked on this for a very long time, and I think your clarity can change, time to time. Just finding out what your purpose is to begin with, what you want to do. You have visions, you set targets. We don't like to use the word goals. We like to use the word as targets. What's my 6 months, 12 months, 3-year targets, where I want to arrive at when I'm 50. So I don't have that problem as of now, what my purpose is. We work on that intensely.
But are you ever afraid that your purposes are all built on targets that are financial? Because you talk about what's my 6 month and all that. I look at it from a business perspective, not a personal.
Okay. I don't struggle with that as of right now. I'm really dialed in and focused on that aspect of what I want to do and where I want to arrive.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we work on with clarity is because we struggle with that. We struggle with riding that roller coaster of the highs and the lows, right? And really, one of the things that I am able to help men navigate is getting off of that roller coaster by creating a different rhythm, right? And getting and it's, we say the why, but getting clarity about what you really want life to look like and then being committed to that. A lot of people, they don't have vision around the destination they want to arrive at, so they never get there. They spend their whole life being busy here, busy here, busy here. And so clarity and commitment creates consistency, which helps eliminate those roller coasters. But for me, the way that I look at it, and it's a faith-based coaching platform. So it's about being a good steward, right? Am I being a good steward of the talents that God has given me? And that's what I share with people and have kind of embodied myself that I reflect on is that's my purpose. My purpose is to be a good steward. God called me to be a good steward of the talents he's given me. He even talks about it, the parables in the Bible where it talks about the guys that were given the talents. 2 guys invested them. 1 guy buried it. Master came back, took it from the guy that buried it and gave it to the guys who invested it. So, I always ask myself, am I being a good steward of my time and my talents personally and in my business? Like, am I measuring up and being a good steward of those things and leveraging those for the kingdom? Because I don't want to be the guy who buried my talents. And so for me, I've been able, for myself and a lot of the guys that I coach, we've gone through a process where we've eliminated that roller coaster of, what is my purpose? Because we get clarity about that and we implement that concept right there of being a good steward of things. Am I a good steward of my marriage? Am I a good steward of my children, my time, and just basically my talents? And it's like, that's the purpose, to be a good steward. And again, it's just simple, right? And I go back to the Bible. It's like, this is in the user manual. We should implement these things.
Yeah. What about you, Lee?
I think I don't struggle with it anymore. But I think it evolves as you kind of go down the path of life. I mean, I think you can, whether it's personal or business wise, you can start with a certain purpose, whether it's status or financial or whatever. But as you go down the road, at least for me, like I don't do what I do for me anymore. It's for my wife and for we're about to have our first son. So it's going to be for him. And so once I realized that it's not about me, it's always about other people, then for me, I never lose that why. Because if it's always for someone else, I'm setting the stand, I'm building myself into this man and then giving myself to the people around me. So if you always do it for someone else, in my opinion, you never lose that why. You never lose that sense of purpose because you're always trying to be the best every day, because every day is a new day. I mean, you don't, that's like Marcus Aurelius, straight, not straighten. You're never going to get there. You always start over the next day. So if you do it for other people, in my opinion, you never lose that purpose.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's powerful. Yeah, I struggle with that some days because we don't have any kids and Tracy does very well financially. So, I mean, there's times especially after my parents passed away and stuff, I went through an area of just like, I don't know. I mean, I was lost. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I lost both parents in a very short amount of time. And then 46 years old, I'm like, holy shit, I'm an orphan. I haven't lived in my parents' house for 25 years. And I'm like, shit, I'm an orphan. Like, it was a really weird thing. And it was really hard. And I would still say I still currently have some days where I'm fighting to get out of that, where I just kind of wake up and it's not that I don't want to do anything. I'm just like, I don't know what to do.
Yes, stay in the small things.
Yeah. You just don't have that driving force behind you to kind of like mentally push you like, hey, we got to provide for this, or the kids need that, and all that. So it's always intriguing to hear like what people, how they stay focused on moving forward.
Hey, one thing to that. Go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was, even on like Ryan, you're saying you don't have any kids, but you still have her. Like before we were pregnant, I was still trying to set that standard for my wife, so that, because maybe she's struggling one day. Well, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, and I'm not that man that she needs to be that day because of whatever, I'm having a mental day or whatever, and then she comes to me, then I can't support her the way she needs me to support her. And so it's and especially as men, like, we really can't take a day off. And I think that's hard for some people because they want to just have that day sometimes. But especially when you have a spouse, or you have kids, or you have even a crew, guys that work under you as a business owner, or clients that you coach, you got to show up. You got to show up for them, regardless of how you feel, and regardless of the situation, which is definitely easier said than done. But I believe God put you through those situations to make you better, because you can't grow unless you're uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and Ryan, you're a man of faith, right?
Yeah.
So, when I hear you say something like that, I think about being a man of faith, and because there was a point in all our lives before any of us had kids. I have a 10-year-old daughter now, and that has a lot of it, but I was willing to even forego all of those things just to make money, and so I was miserable. And so I had to find a deeper purpose, even more so than them. And for me, that was that being a good steward thing. But here's the thing too, is, I believe that we're going to stand before God once this life ends, which we're all headed that way. And he's going to be like, hey, here's what this thing looked like. And this was for you, but you didn't operate in your faith. You operated in fear. And then, were you a good steward of the talents that God's given you? And I think that that's part of the journey, is discovering the talents that God has given us. Right. But then also, one of the things that I would encourage you in is spend time in what you know, not in what you don't, because a lot of times we get lost in the darkness of the I don't knows. And so just hearing you say that, when you're in those days or those moments, of kind of like, what is my purpose or where I'm at? I don't know if you still have those, but for anybody that listens, if you really start to say, if you stop tolerating the words I don't know in your life, and you start going, okay, what do I know? Okay, I know that I'm a man. We'll start with that. I know that I've struggled. We'll start with that. I know that my parents aren't here anymore. We'll start with that. I know that I have a podcast. I know I have a platform. And it's like, okay, we'll spend time sharpening the sword in those things and those talents, and see what else blossoms out of it.
Yeah, because and that's amazing advice, because, like, I think my favorite word in the Bible is beget, right? Because like negative thoughts beget negative actions, and vice, positive thoughts are going to beget positive traction. And sometimes you don't have to know the way. I don't know my path where I'm going long term. That's not for me to know. I just know that I need to walk the one that's in front of me and make the right decisions, and he'll put me exactly where I need to be when I need to be there.
Day by day, right? That's what Lee was saying about that book, or you were saying, I think.
Yeah. And then the other thing that really helped me out, especially the days I was really in a funk, this was probably 9 months ago. I don't remember who it was. I want to say it was Elon Musk, but maybe it wasn't. But I took away from an interview one time. The guy's like, in the days I don't want to do anything, I tell myself, just do it for 5 minutes.
Yeah. There's power in that. When you don't want to do it, you're like, you don't have to, we live in this world where everybody's comparing themselves, like, oh, you got to crush the day. You got to do these things. It's like, just take it one bite at a time. It's like the old adage, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah,
one bite at a time.
But like, like you sit down, like, oh, I don't want to write that email when it goes out to them. Just go work on it for 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, you still feel this way, quit. But that 5 minutes literally will turn into hours just because you worked through it. And there's a couple times I'm like, just give it 5 more. You're not quite there yet. But like, it's just that mental thing. Like, just go do it for 5 minutes. I hate running. Just go run for 5 minutes.
Yeah, getting started is the hardest part.
Yeah. And I mean, for you guys, in your industry, I feel like evening estimates has got to be that biggest one for those guys. Like, you work all day long, you get home, you're trying to fit some family time in, and then you got 3 estimates you got to fill out. Each one takes half hour to an hour. I guess the last thing you want to do at 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it is.
That's all. Nobody.
I was going to say, I didn't want to interrupt nobody. I guess talking about the estimate thing, I'll do it rough drafts. Like if I have that situation happen where it's late at night or something, I'll sit down and I'll type them up and then I'll look at them the next day. If it's 9:30 at night, like you don't need to send it. Like you can wait a day.
I'm more talking about getting back into work mode. Like it's got to be a struggle to even sit down and start writing those out sometimes.
It is. But that's with anything. I think that's even if it's for us. For me, it's estimates. You don't at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, your brain's foggy. You don't want to do it. But like you said, just sit down and take 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I know. I struggle with that.
Yeah, I was going to say I struggle with this tremendously. We are Justin's always telling me office hours, and we talked about this on our call today. Is like doing tasks that generate you revenue, and we're all good in the field, right? But I struggle with office time hours. They're scheduled on my calendar after our call, but maybe I need more than 2 hours a week to work on my business. We talked about a bunch of stuff today about focus on tasks that generate me revenue. And one of the things that I said is like, yeah, I'm in the field. I need to go make a paycheck. But in reality, yes, that gets you paid, but those are not things that actually make you money. It's building relationships, content, cold calling. It could be, sending estimates gets you paid. Sending invoices gets you paid, right? It's working on your business. So it's something I struggle with a lot. So I need to sharpen my sword on the office time hours. And I've always been the guy like, man, I got to get this done so I can get paid. But in reality, I need to leave at, on those days I have on the calendar, I need to get home and do this office stuff. So that will lead me to another paycheck or another relationship. And that's what drives, and that's what builds your revenue.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute. Because I feel like you're going to get a lot of doe and headlight looks from guys when you say only do tasks that are revenue generating. Because they're like, well, they're all fucking revenue generating. Like, right. I can't do any revenue if I don't do the bookwork and if I don't do the estimates, if I don't do the actual hand raking. Like when you talk about that, what do you guys approach priority wise because you feel that it gets you the best return on investment for your time in your business?
That's something I struggle with. I'm still learning. So that's Justin question on that one.
So it's true. A lot of people struggle with being busy, especially in service-based businesses, right? Where you start out with a skill set and that you think that that's what makes you money and that's part of it, but you actually earned that job and that paycheck before. Now you're just keeping your promise. And this is what I was sharing with Jeremy on our coaching call today, talking about protecting those office hours, because a lot of people, they spend time in their business, but they don't spend time on their business. And when you spend time on your business, you're doing those things. There's office and admin work that has to happen, especially when you're running solopreneur. You are the admin, you are the content creator, you're the content poster, you're the Google review getter, you're the invoice sender, you're the follow-up person, you're the lead generator, you're the call person, you're the scheduler, the setter, the doer, the executor. You've got all these things, right? And so a lot of people, they don't ever sit down though and go, okay, instead of being busy, how do I make sure that I protect revenue generating tasks? And then time block where you're like, okay, on Tuesdays at 3:00 or whatever, you're going to take these 5 things that generate revenue, and you're going to do those. And a lot of times when I share that with people, it's really geared towards how do you stir up new business? Because servicing existing clients, servicing existing estimates, or people who have approved jobs or contracts with you, that's service work. The revenue generation is the things that it takes to get to that point. And so a lot of people, they don't protect those tasks.
That's wonderfully put. Lee, do you struggle with that at all with your business?
I did initially, yes. And so I had to learn to do the same thing. So I had a mentor, right? So this is rip off and repeat of things I have learned from other people who are smarter and wealthier than me. And I love sharing it with people because I see so many young entrepreneurs struggle with this stuff. As a busy real estate guy, there's so many things that you can do. You can do networking, you can create content, you can do a podcast, you can make phone calls, you can get coffee, you can do all the things. And so I have a buddy of mine who's a billionaire, and he said, in order to create a recession-resistant business, you build relationships. That's really the number one thing. You can pay for marketing, you can have Google SEO, and all of it has its role. But really, if you focus on building relationships with people, you will build a business full of referrals and relationships, and your phone will always be ringing. So I'm at a point where I time block out those specific things still, where I manage the tasks that generate revenue for my different businesses, and I have action item sheets and things, and we track them, and I run a fairly tight ship when it comes to that stuff. But that's how I do it. I have a plan in place, and I time block around it to make sure that I protect those things on a weekly basis.
Yeah. What about you, Lee?
I mean, I do struggle. I do struggle with it. I try to do better at it, but of course it's definitely hard. I feel like in service-based businesses because you work around the weather. And so like if the sun's out, you want to work longer. If it's, raining, you don't work that day, or if, stuff like that. But I think it's definitely something I'm trying to do better at. And that's why I wake up when I wake up, because I'm like, okay, if I can put a little bit of work into it before the gym, whether that's some kind of content, some kind of work, that's a check in the box pursuing that right there. And like at lunchtime, I think making phone calls at lunchtime is something else. It's like take out a little bit of block of time and make a little bit of progress in there. And then I am working more toward a scheduled time that I leave, as long as nothing crazy happens, to where I can get home, I can spend time with the family, and then I block off time right before bed to kind of wrap things up, whether that's working on estimates or doing research for a job or some kind of content or something. And that's kind of how I block off my time for office work, is a little bit before, a little bit in the middle, a little bit at the end. Because I am by myself right now, so I've got it. Obviously, I got to do all of it. But I do think it's something that is definitely a struggle because life happens, and the last thing you want to do at 8:30, 9:00 is put your content hat on, or go or get on the computer and to work on estimates or whatever. But I try to write down things that I need to get done every day. 5, 6, 7 tasks, whatever it is. And that kind of keeps me on track of, okay, I sent those emails. I did this, I did that. But it's definitely a struggle for sure.
Yeah. What else do you guys write down, or try to write down every day? Is it just your to-do list, or do you do any journaling or any other writings any day?
We implemented what's called an action item list. We share that on a Google Drive so he can see it. When we check them every Tuesday on our call, but I'll implement it. I still struggle with using that tool. I do implement stuff. How we do it is you implement it when it was assigned and when did you actually do it. And then when we're done with it, we take it to another drive and say this is completed. But we talk about it every Tuesday and talk about stuff leading up to that. What do we have to do? What do we miss? So that's what we've implemented. It's worked out really well. I still struggle with using that. I'm a pen and paper guy, but let's all be honest. Like if I write it down on paper, I'm not going to look at it again. So We even write like our podcast today. Yeah, we got a Zoom call. Yeah, we got an email, but I still go in there. I didn't do that on there. I should have, but that's what I mean by action items. Just anything you can think of that you have to remember. You have to send an invoice in, or I didn't do this. I got to get this in. So it's a really good tool to use.
Yeah.
I've journaled a lot. Jeremy's talking about action items and tracking those things, and we kind of have a simple system in place to make sure that things are getting moved forward. But talking about journaling, I fairly well journaled myself into sobriety because I had to, and somebody encouraged me to do that. And I thought it was weird. I'm like, I don't need to journal. That doesn't even make any sense. I just need to get shit done. Right. I don't have time for journaling, like this is a dumb idea until I was at the bottom enough to where I was like, all right, I'll take any advice I can get. I don't care if you tell me to stand on one leg and whistle, whatever it is. And I journaled a lot, and I journaled through my sobriety, and it allowed me to really get my thoughts on paper. And I still have that journal. In fact, I've got it with me in my backpack. And sometimes I go back and I read that and I'm like, wow, I was in a pretty dark place. But it definitely helped because it allowed me it was like self-reflection, right? About the pains that I was having. Because sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes we don't want to go sit down with somebody and just tell them all our problems. So going through the process of writing those things out was therapeutic for me to a point to where it helped me with my sobriety journey.
Yeah, I'll tell you the thing I take away from journaling the most is that you have to slow down. Like your hand cannot move a tenth of the speed of your brain. And if you just think about the things that are happening in your life, like let's say you get to one that you really don't want to think about, like you can kind of fast forward and cruise right through that. Where when you've got to put those thoughts on paper, like the hand only moves as fast as the hand moves. And like for you, I was thinking about this actually when you said that, Justin, was like, it's crazy that we have to slow down in order to actually speed up.
That's good. That's a good point. Yeah, no, that is so true. In fact, I require the guys I have an onboarding process, and I require them to handwrite it for that reason. They type it up and they can kind of just get through it real quick. And here it is. I'm like, no, you need to take, several hours and think through this thing. But what you just said, that's a golden nugget. You do have to slow down in order to speed up because you kind of have to. It's almost like you build a truck that you don't change the oil in and it starts to break down and you're like, oh shit, I need to probably take this to the shop, which requires slowing down, to get back on the road.
Yeah. Lee, do you write much? Yeah, you write a lot, don't you?
Yeah, I journal every day. I mean, I write down my tasks for the day and I have a plan, but then at the end of the day, I like when I read or like I write down my thoughts or my concerns of the day, whatever's on my mind right before bed, I like to write it down because I feel like it releases it from my brain onto a piece of paper. And then also write down my goals because, I believe in manifestation and visualization. And part of that to me is actually physically writing them down, not only thinking it, but writing it and saying it. So I like to write everything down, goals, worries, anxieties, whatever, or just reflections from the day, things I could have done better at the end of every day. And that's how I like to do it. It works for me. So,
yeah. So I wanted to do it in the morning because I feel like I wanted to get all that before I started my day. And I couldn't find, and I just wanted a simple one-sheeter because I kept opening the book up and it was just a big white sheet of paper. And I'm like, all right. Oh yeah, I got to write down, what I'm grateful for. And then, oh shit, I forgot to do this. So I actually worked for like a week and a half and I kind of created my own daily sheet. And it's not meant to be like a long journaling session. It's just meant to stay focused. So I've got a section of like the 4 things I'm grateful for. And then the 4 below that, it's, I haven't looked at it for a while. Good talking about it, not always great doing it. Let's be clear on that. There's a section for like things that you to write down what you're grateful for. There's a section for like the 4 or 5 habits that you're trying to build in your life. And then there's a section for the 3 things that you need to do for your business. Almost back to what you're saying, like the revenue generating tasks. Like I always say it this way, if you only could do 3 things today, what are the 3 things that will make the biggest impact in your business? Mm-hmm. Let's be honest, returning that email from Sally, maybe I got to do it. It's not frantic. Like it doesn't, don't sacrifice these three things for anything else. And then I built a pie sheet that has 4 quadrants. It's health, wealth, finances, and relationships. And I fill it out based on a 1 to 10 level and how I'm feeling that day about my health, my wealth, my relationships, and all that. And it's got a little line to write, just write a real quick sentence of why I feel that way. Because I've learned just from going to counseling for so many years, like you don't even realize you're off track until you're way off track. Or if you can catch that when you're just a few feet off track, it's real easy to get back on track.
Yeah.
But most of us, when we get off track, like you're talking about, Justin, like you look for anything to figure out the way back to the path, which means you were 1.5 miles away.
Right.
Right. But what if you're only 6 feet off? You're like, no, I'm fine. I don't need your help. I'm good. Right. I can see it. So to me, I always want to be inside of that. Yeah.
That's the power of reflection. Right. I tell people all the time, and I say, pay attention a lot. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. The same kind of thing at the end of the day. It's like, did I win the day? Pay attention to whether or not you're winning the days and you're stacking the wins. And we talked a little bit about this, and there was a different word for it, but are you winning each day? And we talked earlier too about the small things. And so it's like, am I doing the small things on a daily basis that make a difference mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially? Those are kind of the similar 4 things you were talking about. And then the revenue generating things, it's like, because we can all get busy. It's easy to get busy. Just get on Facebook, get on TikTok, go bullshit with your friends in a restaurant, whatever. But a lot of people, they end up something like you just said, they end up way off course because they're not paying attention. But I think that also has a lot to do with who we surround ourselves with, right? Because if you're hanging out with people who are also really distracted in life, you will be as well. But if you're hanging out with people that are like, hey man, you kind of off track a little bit. Like, you all right? Like you're looking like your pants ain't fitting, or hey man, your mental state. I saw that post the other day. You okay mentally? Hey, I hear you complaining about your wife. Like you don't normally do that. Is everything okay? So it's good to be around other people that will not call you out, but encourage you to get your shit together, Yeah,
because the last thing you need to do when you complain about your wife is to have the 3 guys around you go, well, my wife sucks too. And next thing you know, it's just an avalanche of hatred.
Yeah, it's not good. Or they're like, you know what? Yeah, let's go to the bar and do bad things. It's like, no, that's the wrong circle of people.
Yeah.
You got to surround yourself with people that want to see you win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend your time with.
I heard it put in a really crazy different way the other day that just kind of rang with me. And it said, I forget who said it, but and I think it was a woman, but she said 95% of who you become is determined by who you hang out with. And, we hear the 5 people a lot, but I was like, that's 95% of who I become. Like when I'm 70 years old, 95% of what that looks like is determined by the people around me. That's serious.
Yeah, it really is too. I mean, think about it. How many of you still talk to more than 1 or 2 people from high school?
I don't think I talked to anybody from high school.
I talked to one guy.
I talked to my wrestling coach who was a resource officer there that still is a resource officer. That's about it.
Right. Like we outgrew that circle, right? We had to go find our new circle. Because I'll guarantee you there's a group of people from high school that are still a group of people 30 years later.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of growth. You've got to be, a lot of times you got to decide, there comes moments in life where you can outgrow your friends if you're seriously committed to the journey. Because they get to a certain point and they're like, I'm good here. And you're like, well, I kind of want to keep going, getting a little better. I want to keep growing. And they're like, I'm going to park in this parking lot. And that's where I'm going to leave it.
Yeah. Lee, did you go through a period with your people and circle of friends when you decided to make that shift in your life, when you got serious about becoming the best man you can be?
Yeah, 100% I did. I think I go through it now. I've gone through a shift during that time frame. I've probably gone through 2 or 3 shifts since I started my business with other business owners. Same thing. You get into business, you start bettering yourself. You're in that gray area. You meet a couple guys that are in the same kind of service area that you are, and then you're like, okay, cool, maybe we're like-minded, but then you realize that you want to go past them, past where their block is, and then you're back in that gray area. And then you do it again and again and again. I think it continues to evolve. I think you have to continuously audit your circle and realize, are these people, on the same path as me, or do they want the similar goals as me, or do they want to continue to grow, or they don't? And if they don't, and you want to keep growing, you have to go back out to the gray area. So yeah, I mean, I think I've been through that several times. My wife has too. I mean, because she committed to being better as well, and she's gone. We're both in the gray area. And that's just part of continuously growing, is continuing to up your circle of people around you, because really you want to be the dumbest person in the room, because then you're just going to get smarter. And so you always are looking to audit the people around you and your influences and stuff like that.
I like to be the second dumbest person in the room, because I want to have somebody I can coach a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I tell you guys a funny reference. My mentor one day in a mentoring session, he told me, he said, that's the difference between good and great. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, a lot of people, they arrive in the parking lot of good, and everybody's like, hey, it's pretty good. Maybe everybody's got a boat or a motorcycle and things. Life seems kind of cool. What's going on. And he's like, but the person who's like, what's next? We got to keep going. That they're like, Lee was just saying, he's auditing his circle. He's like, and everybody else is like, no, I'm hanging out right here. It's that continued pursuit of greatness in some aspect of our lives where we're like, hey guys, I'm gonna keep going. And I thought that was just a cool reference. There's a book called Good to Great about something similar, but I thought it was neat. He's like, that's the difference between good and great. Are you going to arrive in the parking lot and stay good, which it's a good place for a lot of people, because it's really hard to stand up and say, I want to go be great, because that requires getting out of that. So you're comfortable and you're like, no, I got to keep going. But I think it's required.
And I think until you go through some periods in your life and really start figuring out who's who in your circles, I think that that can be challenging too. So I actually did this. I don't know. I took a sheet of paper, I put a dot right in the middle of it, and I drew 6 circles, progressively getting larger out from around it. And then each circle, like the first circle is your inner circle, your family, maybe 1 or 2 close friends, your spouse. And then the circles just kept representing like how close people were to you in your life. Because what I found was like people in circles 3, 4, and 5, sometimes I would have a 5 and a 3, and I was doing shit for them with my time that they didn't justify getting. And I had a hard time breaking out who's who. And then now, like, I meet people, because like if a stranger asks you on the road, like, hey, can you help me move today? And you're like, no, things to do. But if your brother goes, hey man, I got to be out of my apartment by midnight, can you come over? And you're like, yeah, I'll drop what I'm doing. I'm on my way. But it's those people in the middle, like who's who and where do you start spending your time? What are you getting from them? What value do they provide to you and your family or the world around you? And like that exercise really gave me a lot of clarity, and I'm on the phone a lot less with people that I thought. I don't talk to people like I used to, because everyone's not in the circle 1 or circle 2.
So you just nailed a whole bunch of really great points in that whole thing. That's a hard process to navigate, because that's a process of reflection. And one of the things that I find with a lot of people that I coach, or even that I'm just around, is they're busy being on the phone with people who they don't need to be on the phone with. And Jeremy knows this. Like, I don't take random phone calls, unless you're in the core circle. Because same thing, I spent an hour on the phone with somebody that doesn't even add value to my life or need me really for anything. It's just, you're on the phone. And so I had to go through a process where I quit taking random phone calls. Like, if I don't know you and you're not like in my top 5 people, the answer is we need to set an appointment. Or I'll call you back when I'm on the road or in between or something. But yeah, that was good.
But I just feel like, we talk about surrounding yourself with the right people and all that. And I just, because I was there, how do you determine who's who? Build a damn diagram, put a dot on a piece of paper, write some circles, and start putting names in those circles of where do you think they go. You're going to find like, oh man, Chris, he's on my bowling team. Yeah, he's tight. we're really not that tight. When bowling season's not around, we don't even talk until the next bowling season. He's actually a 4, not a 2. And you're like, whoa, okay. And you can start getting some clarity on like where these people are in your life, because we give typically more than we get, because one, we are men and we suck at asking for help. But so we've got to figure out where those boundaries are with people. And like that boundary work is very powerful. Same with customers. Like, what customers are you going to bend over backwards for, and which ones are you not?
Yeah, boundaries is a great topic because a lot of people don't have any, and that's how they end up being just busy instead of productive. They let everybody in. That's a good exercise. I like that a lot. That's good.
Yeah, protect your time. You got to protect your time. That's a big thing that I've been working on. And hitting back on the circle of people thing, I think a lot of people get locked into these stereotypical people that they think are in their top 5. Like, their family or people they've known forever. I mean, just because we're blood related does not mean you're in my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
You don't contribute to my life the way that if there's not a mutual thing there, if you don't better me, if you're dragging me down, you're out. It's just, that is it. So I think a lot of people struggle with that because there's a stereotypical feeling toward family or old friends or the guys from the old neighborhood or whatever. And they let that cripple them. And they end up giving too much time, too much love, too much effort. And I think that's a big hurdle for people that are trying to get better, is they allow too much of their time to be wasted on people that aren't trying to be better as well, or better them, push them.
Right. It's powerful. Powerful. Anything, because has any of you 3 gotten any ideas of something that you wanted to talk about from our conversation so far? I want to make sure that we get everyone's topics in on here. I'll do a little monologue thing. No, I'm kidding. Right. I'll sing a little tune
song
for the crew. Yeah, I'll sing a little song.
I love all this stuff. It's a blast, and it's fun to share, right? And to encourage and to be able to do things and hear from you guys and hear ideas. I would encourage people in that whatever room you're in, always be listening. Kind of like what you were saying. I think Lee said it. You don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, strongest guy in the room. There is always room for growth, or there's always something you can learn. You can get in the right rooms and listen to the right people, because you can always, like, man, I'm going to implement that, but you got to be out there looking for it. And you got to be humble enough to go, you know what? I've got a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah. Humility is a big one. Real big one. The thing that I've noticed, I shouldn't say that, it's a little bit off topic, but the humility made me think of that because I had to take my coat of armor off to do this. But I reached a point in my life where, like, the men in my life that are really close to me, I'm A-okay saying I love you to them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I told a guy that good buddy of mine this morning, he's actually swimming the English Channel. And I was like, I love you, bro. Like, go do this thing,
Yeah. But would you have been caught dead at 22 saying I love you to another man?
No, I'd have been like,
Dude, I don't want to be associated with you.
Yeah, I had a hard time showing affection to my kids. Like, that's a big thing I've worked on. It's crazy to say, but I didn't really have a good relationship with my kids, and they're 4 and a year and a half now. And total perspective has changed where, I want to be I want to love on them. I want them to know that, I can be the good dad that they want to play with and interact with. Before I started this journey, I wouldn't necessarily say I didn't have a connection, but I didn't, they'd rather be, with their mom than I just wasn't in the picture, basically, if you want to call it. So, so it's saying I love you, being affectionate, kissing them, loving on them, picking them up. It's the best feeling in the world.
Well, and this may not be a popular opinion, but I think the parents that don't do that, there's your Gen Z that you're seeing today. Right.
Yeah.
George Carlin said it best, man. Touch the little prick. He'll thank you for it later.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, I saw something today. It was like, you want to be the guy that's remembered sitting on the couch and never play with your kids, or you want to be the dad that, the kids always knew that no matter what, he kept going. He played with us. He was there for our events. He was with us at all times. I mean, he was the one. And obviously I pick option 2. So, and I don't want to be just a worker. I want to be a present father, a husband, and have a generating revenue, making, obviously a good business. And then be connected spiritually with our Heavenly Father. So that's our goal.
Yeah. Lee, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think a good exercise, actually, I heard it today. He was talking about an exercise that they do, and it's pretending to be, it's kind of dark, but pretending like you've passed away and you're in the casket. What are they going to talk to you? What are they going to say about you? So you're writing, you're there and you're writing as if you've died and what they're going to say about you when you're in the casket. And, that can kind of make you, okay, well, look back on the past 30, 40, 50 years on how you want to be remembered, and write it down and then go from there. And that, like, being present, being a father, being a husband, and all that stuff.
Have you written it down yet?
Huh?
Have you written it down yet?
I heard it today. It was on the way home. It was on a podcast. I was listening to it on the way home. I haven't written it down yet.
Backstory on that. It's a good point. I love that.
Funny.
So I guess I put on this persona, like I'm a tough guy. I don't cry. I used to tell my kids, shut your emotions off. Don't cry. So we went on this men retreat, and then Justin was like, you're going to cry. I'm like, bro, I'm not going to cry, And then that exact thing he made us write. It's called a eulogy, right?
It's called a eulogy. Write your own eulogy.
And the way he talked it up and imagining, and I had all these thoughts in my head. He's like, I want you to take time. All you guys take time, write it down, and take your time. So he left us alone. He did his thing, and we sat there, and I wrote it down. And I was reading that. I choked up, started crying. Man, it was like, I have never been this. I am not the same person from that day. It was. That's a very good tool. That I wouldn't necessarily call it a tool. It's the word I'm looking for.
Exercise.
A good exercise to do if you really want that reflection piece, and that'll really steer you in the right direction. And you got to take it serious. I mean, you get what you put in. Don't just write things out. Take time, think about what you're going to say. But if you haven't done that, man, that'll change your perspective quick. Lee, you got to do it.
I'll do it. Oh yeah, no, I'm planning on doing it. I liked it when I heard it today.
And when you do it, read it to your wife.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Lord, it's gonna get emotional.
Yeah, you'll cry. We I put on men's retreats every year, and that's one of the exercises that we do is we write our own eulogy, and we get just really in tune with ourselves before we go through the process, and then we read them, and we share them with our spouses and things, and it's like I'm on. This is gonna happen one day. I gotta lay all this other bullshit down and really work on becoming who God made me to be, because this is going to play out. And so it's a powerful exercise. It'll move you. I've done it a few times.
The way Justin, perfectly, whenever he explained it to us, and I was up there talking about, imagine how many lies your wife and your kids are going to stand up there and say about you, just the way he made it said, because you're not being the man that you should be, and I just couldn't imagine, I wouldn't want to go through that. I wouldn't want them to stand up there and talk about how good I was when I really wasn't. So that's gave me another push to change. So that's what's really it's just a huge piece of my journey. So,
and I'll tell you what made Jeremy shift, just while we're talking about it, if we got a second. It was the fact that what he wrote down isn't what they might actually want to say unless they had to lie about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want it to be real. I mean, I'm sure all of us have been to funerals where, they get up and they talk about the guy or whoever, and you leave and you're like, that wasn't true.
Right. He was not a great man.
That joker was back there doing this and doing that, and none of that was true. What are they, you want it to be true. You want it to be real, when people talk about you when you're dead. It's a great point. I mean, you want all the stuff you want to write down, you want it to be true. So when you do die and they talk about you, they ain't got to lie about you.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's powerful too. Sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
No, go ahead, Jess.
I was going to say that's powerful for every day, meaning like, we could like get off this podcast and go out here and it could be our day to go. And it's like, that's why we have to live every day and do the things and pay attention to the small things and be the men and the husbands and the fathers and all that, because it can happen at any moment. And so we've got to be preparing for what, if I died today, is the last thought my wife's going to say is, he was a dick in an argument, or is the last thought that, my daughter's going to have is, oh, dad was just a busy business guy, or like what's going to happen when that moment comes. And that's a real gut check.
Yeah, that's really true. I've never written my own eulogy, probably half out of fear. It's hard, right? Looking at yourself that way. But I do drive by funeral homes and I look at it and I wonder how long of a line would be there if I was the guy inside. Like, how many lives have I touched, and how many people would feel important enough to take a break from their day to come give their respect at my funeral? Because I've been to some that like there's 20 people, and I've been to some there's like 300, 400 people. Like, what's the difference, right? Like, it's the way they live their life.
And one of the things I think about, because I've had the eulogy part and then something similar to that as well. And I'm like, my daughter's standing up there. What are all the people walking by, shaking her hand, giving her a hug, going to say about her dad? Your dad made a difference in my life. Your dad lived his life. Your dad helped, this guy and that guy, and helped me navigate business and become a better husband. Or is it going to be like, your dad was a drunk business guy? It's like, what are those stories going to be? Because you're right. We've all been to a funeral and you're like, I didn't like that guy or that guy. You know what I mean? It's terrible.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, Lee, you have to try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I am.
All right, I'll commit to trying it.
Well, then the other tough part about that is you got to share it with somebody. Because then it's like, oh man, like, that whole speaking it manifestation thing. It's like, it requires a lot of reflection. And that's where transformation kind of starts, is when we realize that we want a different result than the actions that we're putting in on a regular basis. And it's like, the day's coming, the clock is ticking for all of us.
Right. Here's the crazy thing about, to me, in that eulogy, you go back to that morning routine stuff, right? Like, nobody's ever going to say, wow, he worked out a lot, or wow, he journaled a lot. But those are the tools you need to become the man that they write about. Like, it's that balance of like, what's a tool and like, what is the steward and what's the way we live our life.
Yeah. And I think, people will see the results. It's like a paycheck. A paycheck is a result of tasks. Six pack is a result of tasks. Your people's perception of you as a result of the task that you put in life, I think, is kind of a way that I package that up.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people, they chase.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say they chase the result. They don't chase the task.
You gotta love it.
Gotta love the process. Gotta love the process.
That's the whole point. Process is the whole thing. I mean, because if you fall in love with the process, you never really reach the end result because you just keep growing, keep moving the bar.
Well, and there is no end result.
Yeah,
there's no goalposts in this game.
Yeah, you're never. And I've shared this with Jeremy a lot. Like he wanted to get done, get finished, get done, get done. I'm like, you get that job done. You're out there killing yourself till 9 o'clock at night, and your wife and kids are at home wondering where you're at. Like, you're gonna have to wake up tomorrow and go do it again. So you might as well be intentional about it. But yeah, it's about. And I heard it put this way: it's not about what you can get; it's about who you can become. I don't remember who said that, but that's the process. And when you fall in love with the journey and you fall in love with those daily tasks and small things, you can become an impactful, influential person, not just in business, but personally or in your marriage and all those kind of things. And I think that there's power in that.
It's not about becoming a millionaire. It's about the man you become, to get to that. So we always talk about the journey. And it's hard. And we call it seasons in life. And I struggle with, man, like when is my time going to happen? But it's kind of like what Lee was saying and Justin. It's like the process / journey. It takes time to build. And you just have to enjoy it, fall in love with the process, like building content. Like it's fun. You love the process to see your audience grow and love to see the man you become and look back to and where you arrived at now. So it's all good.
Yeah. We were just talking the other day, a friend of mine was in town for a wedding and we stayed at my house and we got on the topic of like heaven and hell and like talking about hell. And I'm like, listen, my personal opinion, I don't think it's fire, brimstone, and you're always burning. I think you're stuck doing tasks that you hate. I think that's definitely, I think that's hell.
Well, how many people do you think live that out on this planet?
Daily.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're doing tasks that they hate. That's one of the things I love about coaching people is like helping them wake up, because a lot of people are building a life where they're miserable. And I'm like, I don't want to get to the, end of whatever this thing looks like before death and be like, I spent the last 60 years of my life or whatever, and I'm just miserable.
Yeah. Somebody rang the doorbell and 35. Hazel, she's fine. That's fine. All right. Somebody's got to interject a point. I'm going to hit mute real quick.
Oh, he's hitting mute. We got to talk about something.
Yeah,
that's fine. We'll take it. One of the things that I think about too is grace. I was having a conversation with a couple people this week talking about like God's grace in our lives, right? Meaning how do we treat people versus how God treats us? And, whether you're lording over your wife or your kids, or you're hammered on your kids or hammered on customers, because clients can be difficult. Like in any business, when you have contractual commitments and things don't go as planned, you're like, man, I'm gonna get in a street fight. Like I'm gonna get them. But is that how God loves us? Because if God treated us that way, like we would just be squashed. And so one of the things that I try to think about in my life and my business is am I leading with grace? Contractual things get complicated. Am I having a conversation with grace, or am I trying to beat people over the head or manipulate them? So, grace is something that I think about and reflect on a lot, because as men, we're like, man, I want to be the big guy. I want to be the tough guy. If you don't do your part in the business deal, then I'm just going to get you in the parking lot. And it's like, and like Jeremy was talking about with his kids, it's like, man, I'm going to raise tough young men. Like we're just got to be tough. But that's actually not biblical at all. And I think that we've got to be tough to a certain extent. I mean, men should definitely be prepared to handle themselves, but I don't know. I've never found that leading people in with that type of concept has taken me very far. Negotiations or like overcoming issues in contracts and stuff like that. Well, Jeremy, Lee, what do you guys think about that kind of thing?
No, I agree. I think grace is definitely a big deal. I think as men though, we do have to be capable of certain things. There's a saying that says, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And it's so, we need to be able to take care of business, but being able to have grace or de-escalate situations or stay calm and confident in those situations that normally would make you feel anxious or speak out of tongue or whatever, I think is speaks volumes. Because like you said, I mean, if God didn't have grace for us, we would, we'd all be squashed. I mean, we'd be dead. I mean, he would just strike us down. And so I think that's important as men, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, is to have grace, be able to be capable of taking care of business, but have that confidence in yourself and that grace to be able to navigate those difficult situations.
Jeremy, got any thoughts on that?
I also have learned in this process that, anybody can handle when things are great, things are going really well. It's about the man you become when things aren't going well, like you're having a bad day or your emotions get to you. And I struggle with that time to time with my emotions getting to me. But it's the man that you are when things aren't going the way they're supposed to be. Your kids are sick or, things happen at a job, things break. You got to go home with 6 kids. Wife's didn't have a good day. She's been at home a good day. And of course she didn't have a good day, but you go home with you're calm, you're collected. You have hard conversations. I think that that's key into growing as well. You can call it grace or you can call it just another process of the journey, just having a level head and learning that, things are going to happen. And it's about how you react to those situations.
Yeah.
I think,
go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. You go.
I was going to say, it's funny because we talk about this in a different way on a lot of different podcasts, because so many guys start their excavation business coming from working for somebody else. And that owner or that manager treats them like garbage. And they're like, I can go do this. I don't need them. I don't know how to do all this work. And then they become that man. And then they wonder why they can't keep employees and all that. And grace is a great word, or however you want to do it, but it's like treating people and managing from the power of leadership, not power. And listen, every time you've made a mistake and you've had to say you're sorry, whether it's for not putting the dishes in the dishwasher or for wrecking the car or for doing something crazy, you're basically asking someone for their grace to forgive you and to work with you. So if you're willing to ask for it, then you have to be willing to give it too.
That's a huge point. And you tied it to leadership, and having employees and stuff like that. Like, we want grace, but are we good at giving grace? I've heard, that guy, he screwed that up. When I get there, I'm going to fire him. I'm going to yell at him. I'm going to put him in the ground, And I'm like, well, is that how you want to be treated? And they're like, well, not really, It's like, but that's how you keep people. That's how you build teams.
Right. Yeah, and you have to be able to talk about your vision to your team. Because if they don't buy into it, then you just have an employee and it's going to be a short-term transaction. He's going to find 50 cents more an hour and he's going to jump ship. But if you can get them to buy into your vision, then you build a team that's unstoppable moving forward to reach those heights.
Yeah, and I think that's tough for a lot of people because they don't have clarity around what that vision even looks like. And it's hard for them to articulate. One of the things that kind of like an elevator pitch, a lot of people can't even articulate, an elevator pitch for their business. And in the South down where we're at, I call them a gas station pitch. You see, your buddy over there in another pickup truck. It's like, hey man, what do you do? Getting gas. Well, you get coffee this morning. You got to give them your gas station pitch. So we don't have elevators down here, but yeah, I agree. But you got to have clarity around that thing.
Yeah. Powerful.
I like it.
Good stuff.
So do I. Man, we covered a lot of personal topics. We tied in quite a few of that to business. And let's just distill it down, man.
Well, we talked about vulnerability, right? Vulnerability, showing up for your family. We talked about struggles. We talked about having grace, having hard conversations. We talked about some tasks that we could use to implement how to move the needle forward. We talked about some exercises to make us reflect on ourselves, who we want to become, vulnerability as well. So it's a great podcast.
Yeah. And really, you distill it down, focus on becoming the best man you can be.
Yeah. And you hit two really good points. I think there were two exercises mentioned in the conversation, kind of an internal one and then even an external one, where you're talking about reflecting on your internal circle, right? And going through that process. That's an exercise that people listening to this can take away and go do and add some value to their life. And the other one was kind of the eulogy. That's more of an outward perspective of, what are people going to say about the life I lived and the way that I lived it? So that's pretty cool. An inward reflection and an outward reflection, and two exercises people can actually take away and go do those things. And if they do them with the thought that, the energy that you said to put into them, like the writing down the circles and the people, that's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
We haven't done that. I don't think. But let's do it, Justin.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, I'm down for it.
So we're going to have to do a non-recorded follow-up. Lee and I got to write eulogies, and you guys got to figure out your circles of friends.
Yeah, I think it's a good one.
The thing about it is I don't have friends. I got my family, my excavator, my skid steer, my truck. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, when we show up for that next one, I'm going to wear my black tie and my black suit. If I'm reading a eulogy, I'm going to get into it.
He's going to do the whole part. That's good.
Do the whole part.
Well, maybe down the line we set up a retreat and we all could attend it.
That'd be awesome.
I've got 2 retreats going on next year, Jeremy. So
yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Lee,
any big takeaways you want?
I said, Lee, you're in Columbia, right?
Yeah.
So Justin, he's not too far for that retreat next year.
Yeah,
Ryan,
you're right down the road.
Ryan, you're too far.
Ryan, where are you at?
Illinois.
Yeah. Hey, they make airplanes these days. Plane tickets are cheap.
I love South Carolina, though. Love South Carolina. Lee, anything you just want to big takeaways or anything that you just want to recap for people that are listening that might be able to distill this down a little bit for them?
I think a big thing was, you're talking about the 2 exercises. You got to do them with intent. You got to do them with the intention that you want to get the most out of them. And I think that's a big thing. It's so easy to sit down and just skim through a book or write some BS on a piece of paper. But I think if you really take the time to think about it and do it with intent, and the same thing with every day. Every day you have the intention to get better. Every hour you have the intention to get better. Because like we were saying, I mean, you could die 5 minutes from now, and what are they going to say about you? So I think if you intentionally audit yourself hour by hour, day by day, and build yourself into that man that you were meant to be and give yourself to the world, then you'll be all right.
Yeah. I want to refinish with one last thing. Justin, you talked about the 5 areas. Was it spirituality, physical, mental?
Mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and financial.
I just know that when you're out of sync in one of those, you will actually find the problem is created in one of the other areas. So if you're feeling really stressed out about money, whether it be personal or for business, you're going to either quit working out, eat like crap, or take it out on your wife or become emotionally distant. Just be aware that whenever there's a problem in one of those 5 areas of your life, the result, the pimple on your face is actually going to pop up in one of the other 4 quadrants.
That's good. And it is true.
And surround yourself with people to call you out on your crap when you're out of line.
Well, Jeremy, it's a men's podcast. You can say it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, I want to thank all three of you for taking time and joining us this evening. I know Jeremy and Lee, you guys have been working out in the sun all day today. Justin's in the Outer Banks, so he might be working, but he's got a hell of a scenery while he does it. But this was an awesome podcast, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is one of those episodes where I'm going to actually have to sit down and reflect from all things we talked about and kind of do a little audit on myself. To like, am I showing up for my clients, for myself, my employees, and all that, and what areas of my life do I need to improve so that I can improve the outcome in those areas?
Good. I like that. Justin touched on this too earlier this week about, him reaching out to another coach, in his field or other people. I mean, it's okay to ask for help. That's that vulnerability part, because we don't know everything. So I'm learning to, like, when I'm in a struggling moment or I'm having a challenge, I don't have that insecurity of not being, insecurity of like, I can't be the guy that, doesn't know this, but it's okay to ask for help. So Ryan, it's okay. As you were saying earlier about your, you feel lost sometimes, or you don't know what to do. It's okay to reach out and be vulnerable.
Yeah. I went to a lot of counseling sessions. I usually go every 6 weeks just so I don't get too far off track. And I was like, let's crank that up to like every 3 weeks for a little while.
Yeah.
So awesome, man. Well, guys, thanks so much for being a part of the podcast. I'm going to put a way to reach all of you guys, your social media pages, your Facebook pages, into the show notes. If anybody wants to reach out and connect with Justin, Jeremy, or Lee, you guys can do that. And if I have time, damn it, no, I'm going to say it because that means it forces me to do it. I'll also create a downloadable PDF that has like the circle and the rings, and then my daily dose of gratitude with the 4 habit forming forms and all that. And you guys can download it for free. We'll put a link into that too. So thanks a bunch, guys. And again, till next week, guys, keep growing, not just your business, but yourself. And yeah, I'm going to leave it just at that.